Okay. So I want to talk about like this story that I'm working on. It's called Nine and a Half Bleecker Street. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly, but it's a street in New York. It was ChatGPT that told me about it. Okay, so the story is a haunted house story, right? But once again, instead of telling the story from the perspective of, the traditional way haunted house stories are told, from the perspective of the residents, right? This story is going to be told from the perspective of the real estate agent, the realtor, right? Um, so the story is going to be told from the perspective of a realtor. That's one, and then secondly, most haunted house stories are told are about haunted houses. So like, usually mansions, like maybe a mansion or a cabin in the woods. And the problem with that is most people don't live in mansions. Most people don't live in a cabin in the woods. Most people live in the city, and most people live in apartments or in an apartment block. That's what most people that's what most people can relate to, right? So this story is not going to be about like a haunted house. It's going to be like about a haunted apartment. Um, and then and then lastly, um, the last thing we're going to change is, like I said, it's going to be about a haunted apartment, right? And then lastly, most haunted stories are violent, right? It's just about all these like ghosts that are angry with the world and they just want to like, stab you to death or something like that. This is not going to be violent. This is going to be a story about a ghost, yes, but a ghost that like, how like everybody that steals stuff essentially. So the ghost haunts the apartment, and the ghost only steals like luxury fashion items. So, for instance, if you had like a Birkin bag, right, and you are in that apartment, right, the ghost will steal your Birkin bag. If you had like an expensive, let's say like a Louis Vuitton, a Versace, if you had any luxury fashion item, yeah, four coats, like a boots or something, like anything, any luxury item that is expensive, the ghost will steal it, right? So that's the premise of the story. Now the question is, why is the ghost stealing your luxury items? So essentially, the name of the ghost is Clara Hepburn, right? Um, so the ghost is taken. The name is taken from Audrey Hepburn, and there was someone in the 20s called Clara. Forgotten her name. So like combining those two names, just Clara Hepburn, right? So the ghost was like in 1920s New York. The ghost was like a fashion, um, was a model for a fashion house, an Italian fashion house called Milan, right? And then Milan had like this fashion show, this fashion event, and and Clara Hepburn was modeled for worked for that fashion house. But after the fashion show, she forgot to drop the clothes she modeled for Milan, right? So she took it with her. She took it home with her, and then the people at Milan, they were looking for the clothes for the fashion piece, and they didn't find it. And then they thought that she was the one that stole it. That was the argument, that she stole the fashion piece, right? And then they made it an article essentially. They took an article out in the New York Times, and they published on how like this model Clara Hepburn was trying to like steal their fashion piece essentially, trying to resell it. Actually, that's what they said, that she was trying to resell their fashion piece. And meanwhile, she didn't even know, it was just a mistake. She just forgot to take it out of her bag, and then she took it home, and then it was just it was a mistake, right? And that kind of led to like the demise of her career essentially. So she could not model anymore because there was no fashion house that would hire her, because she's a thief, right? And over time, she couldn't model anymore. So she picked up work as like she started working at the garment factory, and she eventually got married, and then she died, right? She lived a normal life, and then she died. But when she died, because her spirit was like never really she never forgave herself, number one, and then she never got any closure for that issue, right? So her spirit was stuck in that like in our ghost mode, right? In Naruto, is what you call Izanagi, right? So it's like this time loop. She was stuck in that loop essentially. So she needed clearance. So essentially, she went back to that block, that apartment where that building where the fashion house was, which is that is after she died, which is 9.5 Bleecker Street, right? She went back there and she starts to haunt the apartment, right? So she's anybody that stays in the apartment, she comes over and she steals like your expensive fashion items, right? Like your fancy fashion, like belts, your Birkin bags, etc. Like she steals it, and she plans to give it back, but she steals it. So essentially, and then so that's like the core of the story. And then there's this like realtor, this girl from Nashville, right? She's like a top shot real estate agent in Nashville, right? But she wants like a challenge. She's been very successful in Nashville. She's very young. She wants like a challenge. So she decides to move to New York, and then she sees this apartment on 9.5 Bleecker Street, and then she falls in love with the apartment, and she just, she sinks all the money she's made in Nashville to just like getting an apartment, fixing it, and flipping it, and selling it. So she lists it on like StreetEasy essentially. But that, I don't want to get into the full story. So essentially, that is the story. That's like the draft of the story, right? And then eventually, the way. Okay, I won't talk about the end, but the end is kind of like nice too, right? So that's the story. It's called 9. That's the premise. That's the draft of the story. It's called 9.5 Bleecker Street. I hope I'm saying that. Maybe it's Bleecker or something. I'm so sorry. English can be very pronunciation, right? I dropped out of school. I'm sorry. What can I say? Oh my God, I'm so sorry. It's Bleecker Street, or maybe it's Bleecker Street. BLEECKER Street. I'm so sorry. I murdered the name.